Time after time, I tell myself that I'm so lucky to be loving you, so lucky to be the one you run to see in the evening when the day is through. I only know what I know. The passing years will show. You've kept my love so young, so new. And time after time, you'll hear me say that I'm so lucky to be loving you. I only know what I know. The passing years will show. You've kept my love so young, so new. And time after time, you'll hear They say that I'm so lucky to be loving you.
My name is Melissa Miller. I'm the choreographer. This is Louie Marin-Howard, dancer extraordinaire. Sarah Yvonne, dancer also, obviously. She also is the director of Ballet Esprit, which is where we all work and create. So, yeah. Every choreographer is different. But I definitely like to come in with some fixed things. So I will go in the studio by myself for a few weeks, really, and come up with concept and some basic phrase work. And then I bring the dancers in, and I teach to them. And obviously, these are both very talented dancers with a lot of strong artistic voice. And so working with them inevitably shapes kind of how the rest of the piece goes. So I kind of take my lead from them often. Yeah. Not really. I think I was very struck by the actual costumes standing everywhere. Some of those, like the Martha Graham one, the black and white stripes with the headpiece, that's a dance that I grew up watching, and so seeing the costume was quite impactful to me. But I think I took more of a general inspiration from the exhibit upstairs, so taking fashion as my jumping off point, I guess, and I kind of veered off my own way, but instead of thinking of fashion as necessarily like an art form, which it is, but in this case I started thinking about it as identity and as memory, as a kind of milestones for different memories, and how clothing can be a very tactile way to touch back on a different time in your life. So so that was kind of a general inspiration that I took from the exhibit. The only rule I had for myself when I was picking out all these things is that I couldn't pick anything that was black, because that's typically what I would have us all wear. I just wanted each piece to be, I know, I couldn't help it. I wanted each piece of clothing to have the potential to be reminiscent of something. So very like, either very bright or very textured, or something that not everyone would wear, something that would make you think of someone, that would be very specific and identifiable. But colors just kind of happened because I couldn't pick black. So choreographically, the idea was that Louie and I were kind of an extension of the clothing. So the clothing kind of represents Sarah's memories, and then she's sorting through them, and we're kind of bringing them to life. Every time we put on a piece of clothing, we were bringing someone new to life, I guess, running through a memory. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that. Good.
Melissa is so great of a choreographer that she gave us just enough to know what enough is going on. And so it is true that every time we put on I put on and take on clothes, and it is, for me at least, a representation of maybe shedding a layer of maybe what happened. You know, the whole point of even the music is time after time. So I think for me it represented a way of shedding a layer, putting a layer on, coming back to something. What Melissa said earlier about clothing reminiscing, representing a time past. You know, I can think of my little sister who, she just did this. She took one of my grandmothers who's passed away 10 years ago, and she took one of her shirts and she created these like stuffed animals with them, and she gave them to all of the grandkids. And it was very special. And so I think of that when I think of what you just said, that it does matter. I think even though they represent such very arbitrary things, the clothes, I think that at the end of the day, I think they represent layers of ourselves.
Yeah, so I picked each section of music, looking for like the mood that it set. So the beginning, obviously the first two pieces of music are very structured. It's Bach, it's like very structured. The second one's very high energy, and the music kind of dissipates as the piece goes on until obviously at the end there's no music at all. So I did that purposefully to kind of show complexity in a way, that as we were going through her memory kind of chronologically in my mind. So like starting as a child, like children playing and running and jumping, and then moving on to like a more intimate relationships, and then and it got more and more complex as life does, and a little less structured and more chaotic, and these strands kind of start to float away. And so I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I did choose the music to kind of move with us through the narrative of the story.
I'm pretty sensitive to music, and as we ran this piece over and over and over and over, it became more and more part of like, not my thinking side, but more of just like my heart. And I would go through these pieces, and at times I would make the story up in my head to make it all work and fit. And in the beginning, it's very joyful, and I'm enjoying the piece, and then I'm letting it go. And as it grows, it becomes more and more complex and complicated. And I'm sitting there deciding if I like that girl anymore, and maybe I need to let her go. But then the other one reminds me of good thoughts, so I'll hang on to that one. But then it was like it got chaotic, and I lost control. So here I am in that narrative right now in my head. But I'm within that story. I became her. But she has lots of layers and lots of complexities and lots of people that she's been and gone through and seasons in her life. So at the end, to spread it all out and to just say, this is good. This is where I can handle it. If I can see it all and accept it all, then it's good. And I felt one with myself again by the time I could spread out, become unified with all my beings, and accept it. That was my story.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you guys so much again for coming.